I am a free citizen!
But also the autonomous zone
I am a free citizen in the autonomous zone!
Was entirely peaceful because Honeybee...
He said he was speaking on behalf of the police, but
Yes.
never actually quoted a name. So we figured out pretty quickly he was speaking on behalf of himself.
And he was a
his
liberal.
opinion.
We found out he was actually a delegate or he was actually officially involved with
Ties
the
to
state
Clinton, stuff
Democratic
like
Party.
that.
Yeah, ties to Clinton. He was a Clinton staffer.
Yeah.
The support of Antifa, this like open support of it, is very confusing. It's like, do you know this? You got like professors hitting people in the head with bike locks. Like this is not.
It sounds absurd, but it's true.
It's not a wise group. This is not. This is not a smartly organized refutal of some crazy power structure. This is chaos.
The interesting thing about Antifa is that it's not an organization. It is a philosophy and an ideology. Antifa believes that it's morally justifiable to attack people simply because you disagree with them politically.
Just Soros and Steyer, who may have interest in groups like Refuse Fa and Antifa. It's also our friends in Silicon Valley.
I'm going to be meeting with him because he's donated. His money's not part of the 80,000, but he's donated over 50,000. We have other people who donated 10,000. So actually, you're not first, but you're not first, but you are first. And that if we could have right now $15,000.
Could be a homicide.
But it's important, though, to point out, too, that, because 60 Minutes also, to Tony's point, also talked to other pathologists who also agree with the suicide findings. You're being paid by the Epstein family. Isn't it in your best interest to go along with what they believe happened?
They don't believe that happened. They want to know what happened. I think that the brother or the estate would just as soon have this to be a suicide because there's no advantage to them to be a homicide. Mark Epstein is now concerned about a homicide. If his brother was killed because he knew too much, is he also at jeopardy? Other people at jeopardy. So
they don't suspect that their brother was murdered?
Is there any evidence of wounds on the hands of Ronald Gold?
Yes.
What evidence was there?
There were stab wounds on the hands, again in a defensive manner, called defensive wounds by Dr. Golden. And there were bruises on the backs of the hands and the knuckles and the fingers of the hands. The cause of death, in my opinion, is asphyxia due to compression of the neck, which, as Mr. Crump indicated, can interfere with blood flow and oxygen going.
You're the one who put the present Democratic administration in Washington, D.C. The whites were evenly divided. It was the fact that you threw 80% of your votes behind the Democrats that put the Democrats in the White House. When you see this, you can see that the Negro vote is the key factor. And despite the fact that you are in a position to be the determining factor, what do you get out of it? The Democrats have been in Washington, D.C. only because of the Negro vote. They've been down there 4 years. And all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and gotten it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first and they put you last. Because you're a chump.
moments. Finally, George Soros has donated about $13 million to the Democrats this election cycle. That includes $7 million to a Hillary Clinton super PAC. 12 years ago, here's what Mrs. Clinton said about George Soros.
We have been given an extraordinary blessing, and at this moment in time, our country needs us. And we need people like George Soros, who is fearless and willing to step up when it counts.
One by one, they came on bike and foot to form a crowd of thousands, all with the same idea: defund the Minneapolis Police Department and put money into other areas. They want to build something new, all in the name of George Floyd and other black men and women who've been killed by police.
And the millions and billions and trillions that we waste on the military and the police need to go to our communities. We need housing, we need education, we need health care.
We're seeing these kinds of changes in other cities. DC now today codifying them themselves. So some of the things that are in there: unanimously passing a ban on neck restraints, deeming them lethal and a felony. They're also banning the use of pepper spray, rubber bullets, stun guns, tear gas. They've also moved to take disciplinary action out of the hands of the police unions and kind of shut them out of that process, trying to then put it to an independent agency outside of the police department. The police unions, of course, not happy with that move at this point. What else is in this bill? The package also prohibits the hiring of officers who have serious misconduct from other police departments that they were employed with. We've heard
to imagine that future.
Do you understand that the word dismantle or police free also makes some people nervous? For instance, what if in the middle of the night my home is broken into? Who do I call?
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
The mayor of Los Angeles has done the same, talking about defunding the police and actually taking action to defund the police. We all know what happened in Minneapolis recently, where a veto-proof majority voted to dismantle and defund the police. So it's hard to imagine a worse way to help the communities of color that you're seeking to help. Okay, fundamentally, a neighborhood needs safety to thrive. If anybody's going to invest, if anybody's going to have a thriving business, if anybody's going to get a good education, the community needs to be safe. There is no examples of a community becoming safer with less policing. All of the examples point to the opposite. Now, we need good policing, and there's smart ways to do that.
This is rolling back the protective layers that protect Americans in their homes and in their places of business. He's appalled by it, and it's remarkable to hear this coming from today's Democrat Party. As for solutions, he's talking through a number of proposals, no announcements on that, but he definitely, as he's noted, recognizes the horrid injustice done to George Floyd and is taking a look at various proposals.
No further. Welcome to the nation of Chaz. It's the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone located within beautiful downtown Seattle. It's the anarchist utopia you never knew you needed. Just look at all the things you're missing out on. A welcoming committee greeting you upon arrival.
Did not respond to our request for information about what they plan to.
Protesters and far-left activists have occupied a 6-block area in Seattle, Washington by barricading streets to block off vehicle traffic. The area is known as the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
And then that's what happens. But the narrative that we came in, stomped in here, and took over the precinct is just incorrect. We didn't want the precinct. The police officers just decided to, after they got 15,000 complaints in a span of like 2 hours from the city, because they deployed chemical warfare against their people again after they made a pact and said that they weren't going to do that for 30 days. After that happened, they got so much flack from that. The city was calling in, the lines were clogged, and their PR was looking horrible. So they decided, let's take a different approach at this. We've been out here for a week and a half, bombing our own people, throwing tear gas, using sound, using the sound stuff that messes the sound of cannons that mess your ears up so you can't hear ever again in the rest of your life.
And we're not even creating any carbon emissions. That's great. This is the garden, what does it say, for Black and Indigenous and their plant allies.
The flag.